which I don't know how you do because I've never put a comment on, so bear with. Is that it? Oh, I don't know how to do it. Oh, this is a fail, guys. Right. I'm going to wait until someone comes. Oh, chat filter. I'm going to wait until someone comes on because I don't know how to use YouTube. Going a little bit red in the face, yeah. So today's topic is finding yourself when you're lost. I will put some mental health support links on, which are international. So if anyone's struggling with mental health or gets triggered, no matter where you are, you can access support through this link. But I don't know how you do that, so I'm going to wait for someone to come on and help us. So finding yourself when you're lost. One of the things which I've been asked on one of my shorts, hi Gypsy Dave, I'm glad you're on. How do I add a comment on? I'm wanting to post some support links and I don't even know how you make a comment on YouTube. But anyways, I'm just going to chat about addiction. Well, Dave lets us know if he doesn't mind. Dave is one of my brilliant moderators, by the way, so hi. Anyways, finding yourself when you're lost. So somebody had commented on one of my shorts asking about how to do that. And I think this is one of the things is when we're going into addiction recovery, we are leaving one identity behind, which has dominated our entire life. Everything revolves around the addiction. And we then go into a new life, which no longer has the addiction. So the biggest focus of our lives is now gone in addiction recovery. And it's a really hard transition to make because certainly my experience was I don't know what to do with myself now. And clearly whoever's commented is also feeling that sense of loss. So do you want to use... Sorry, I'm just replying to comments. Yeah, I just use YouTube for my lives. If anybody knows how to put a comment when you're doing a YouTube live, will you let us know? Because I've got no idea, guys. Anyways, so it's a really hard thing to deal with, this loss of identity, and it's a really scary thing to do if you're in addiction, active addiction, to make that jump because your whole life revolves around it. And then when we've made that jump, we just don't know what to do with ourselves. At least that was my experience, and it's quite common. So something to think about is we've spent every present moment we've had, a lot of the present moments we've had has been revolving around addiction. So take it back to the basics. Let's just think about the here and now. What are we doing in this specific moment? And how can we get pleasure out of it? Because we've no longer got the pleasure of the addiction. So that looks like being in awe. And being in awe is such a lush feeling, and can be created in any given moment. So for me, one of the things that I started doing, which sounds so lame, but was probably one of the best things I could do, was go for walks and look at the beauty in the world. That meant take my dog out, looking at the trees, feeling the wind, and just being in awe of the fact that I am having this experience, because for the last decade and a half, I've been off my nut. So now I get to experience life being sober and try and experience it. So you can do this in anything. So I said, like, going for walks, but you can go in the shower and just experience what the water feels like. You can sit there if you've got pets and stroke your dogs and feel what your pets feel like when you're petting them. And you can just do this in any situation. If you're with your friends, or for me, I had a son, just focus on the present moment and experience what it's like. And you'll get this sense of awe. It's a really nice feeling that naturally comes when we're really present in the moment. And I think this can be a really great place to start, because if you start training yourself to use the part of your brain which is responsible for being in the here and now and feeling awe, you can start to experience this feeling in any situation. And you can start to fall in love with the mundane. But then when you get to experience great things, it feels even better, and you're also present for it. So I hope that was helpful. Right, I'm going to see some comments. It's been a bit of a flop at the beginning of this, so thanks for bearing with, guys. Yeah, I need to get on StreamYard, Gypsy Dave. I need to just call you Dave. Mouse Charger, nice to see you back. It's nice to see people that also recognise, yeah, Jay's back. Hi, nice to see you again, Jay. Evening. Hi. GP1. What does GP1 mean? Mouse. When I had my cat, oh my God, I love their purrs, so common. There's actually a freak. I'm not fully sure of the accuracy of what I'm about to say, but I'm pretty sure that the purring that cats give off is at a certain frequency, which is really relaxing to the nervous system. But yeah, it's really nice. And if you're even just stroking your dog or cat, or I don't know, maybe you've got a little lizard that you that you love to stroke, whatever, it produces oxytocin. But you can even just get that off having cuddles. I think it's over 20. If you have a 20-second cuddle or more, you start to produce oxytocin. Or if you have a 6-second kiss with someone. So if you want a good neck on with your partner, that can be good for producing oxytocin. And it's just hijacking your own feel-good hormones, because this is exactly what all addiction is doing. It's just hijacking our neurotransmitters, and it's creating feelings, and feelings are all just chemicals rushing around our body. So we can just hijack these feelings ourselves. And if we can just sit there and enjoy the present moment and just quieten our monkey brains and quiet our analytical brains, we get such a nice feeling. So yeah. Oh, I'm gonna screenshot that. Sorry if it lags after this, guys, but I've just got an email. I need to message someone who's helping us out, my moderator. I've got some water hemlock and I'm about to journey to the other side. May the ravens of iron take my spirit and guide me. I don't know what water hemlock is, but that sounds like a fun experience you've got ahead of you. I assume this is a spiritual type thing. Mouse. Got me some seagull teddy to cuddle. Not sure that will be the same. I love cuddling my teddy. I've got a rabbit called Betty Big Bun. My son's got it's a jelly cat. I love jelly cats. It's a type of teddy you can buy, like overpriced teddy bears. And my son's got one that he got as a gift when he was first born, which is a little bunny rabbit, and it's called Betty Bun Bun. So I've got Betty Big Bun. But yeah, it's comforting, isn't it? I think anything that's comforting. I said that to my son tonight. He doesn't like being alone when he goes to sleep. He's currently living in a little tent that I've just upgraded. My dad bought it for him. It's got lights and everything. It's actually very cool. But he doesn't like being alone. He wants to be in the bed with us, but also he doesn't want to be in the bed with us, which is, quite awkward. So I was just saying, just get yourself comfortable. And again, it's that feeling. It's like talking about being in the present moment. If you're focusing on something that feels nice, a nice teddy to cuddle or a little blanket, just anything that feels nice in the current moment. Right. Hi, Joe. It's nice to see you again. If anyone asks me, I want to go to Germany sometime to celebrate Oktoberfest. I've not been to Oktoberfest. I did go to some kind of festival in, I think it was Germany. No, was it? I'm trying to think. I think I'm getting a bit mixed up. I went Interrailing around Europe. I'm trying to think what festival I went to. There was some kind of, I think it was Germany I went to. I'm pretty sure. I'm starting to question myself now, though. Ashley, I'll be back soon. Got a few phone calls to make. Thank you. Enjoy. I hope they're good phone calls. Yeah, so it's been a bit messy this live, so I'm going to try and get on track. If anyone's got any questions about addiction or mental health, feel free to ask us. That's the thing, I haven't even said who I am. My name's Ashley. I'm a therapist. I specialise in trauma and childhood trauma and also addiction. I've also overcame addiction myself, so that was fun. And I've studied it like a ridiculous amount, addiction and counselling. So if anyone's got any questions, ask us. But today I'm talking about how to find yourself when you feel lost, because I think that's one of the biggest things when we're coming out of addiction that I think is a struggle. So I've already spoke about trying to just enjoy the present moment and try and hijack your feel-good hormones by doing things that make you feel good. That's a good way. And another thing that we can do is start to think, okay, we've lost that identity which revolved around the addiction, which means that we actually have an opportunity to create a new identity. And think of it like being reborn. I know that sounds a bit philosophical, a bit woo-woo, but it legitimately is. We're creating a new life because the old one, we need to scrap it. So start to think about, okay, if I fast forwarded to 2 years' time, what would my life look like if I was living the best life I could imagine? And write it all down. And then start to think about, okay, if that's the life I want, how will I be feeling? What will I be doing? What would I not be doing? And start to then use that as your North Star, as like a roadmap. Because I think in addiction recovery, we sometimes think we have to be at the end game, but it's not. It's about thinking, okay, we need to reduce harm. So that's getting rid of the addiction. So that might not just be going abstinent straight away. It might be doing steps towards that, or whatever you want your life to look like. It doesn't need to be sober or teetotal. So we need to reduce harm and we need to improve quality of life. And if we have a roadmap of where that quality of life and what it might look like and where it is, we can start to drive ourselves towards that and get excited about it. Right, I'm going to say what people are saying, and I'm just going to keep weaving back to the topic. Hi, Mohammed, how are you doing? Is this the Mohammed that I've been speaking to through emails, by the way? Because I've noticed there's 2 Mohammeds coming up. I'm not sure. But I'm not sure which one's which. My mouse charger. You know what I took away from your live this morning was to list pros and cons of something you enjoy. That, do you know what it is? I don't really remember what I say, or go in a state of flow. But that does sound like a good thing to do. I don't know why I was telling people to do that. But yeah, pros and cons lists are really good. Oh, yeah, I've remembered about pros and cons to do with your addiction. Yeah, I think that's one of the things. There's a type of counselling called motivational interviewing. And it's a type of counselling that you do with people who don't want counselling. So it works well with people who are in probation and who don't really particularly want to do it. And the premise for it is that you start off by talking about the good things. So say, for instance, they get an addiction counselling and it's mandatory. It's part of the prison, I don't know what you call it. It's been court ordered. So you start off by saying, instead of just saying don't do drugs or don't do alcohol because they want to be doing it, you start off saying let's talk about the good stuff, and you get immersed in that because there's always something that's driving the addiction. So it's good to look at the pros, but then what you start to do is then start to listen for what's called change talk. And when someone's struggling in addiction, usually you get to this point where you're ambivalent. So you look for this ambivalence and then you start to lead them in the other direction of what's the cons. So we can actually just do that with ourselves. We can look at the pros and be real with ourselves and then look at the cons. So what are the things that you don't like? And then you try and flip out the pros and put it to a better pro, a more suitable pro. No, I just forgot, to be honest with you. It took a little hot minute to realise what you're saying. But yeah, I'm glad that worked for you. What did you find? What pros and cons did you find? Or maybe just some cons if you don't want to share the pros. That's the thing I felt there. I think sometimes when we've got addiction, we don't really want to say the pros, even though I was kind of cushioning the blow for you. But I think that's one of the reasons why I like to talk about the positives of addiction. I don't like to just sit here and say it was all bad, because I think there'll be people sat there in active addiction who think, well, that's a load of rubbish. Because there's definitely things that I enjoy about it, or I wouldn't be doing it. Right, Mohammed, I've been saying to myself, I want to be a different person, but I didn't hold myself for years. Do you mean hold yourself accountable, Mohammed, to that? Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's one thing wanting to do something, or so like we might say with addiction, or in your case, mental well-being, we might say we want to do it, but sometimes we're looking at the big picture, which can feel really overwhelming. So we start to feel like, okay, well, we're going to put that off. But if we see it as the big picture, as a roadmap to where we're going, so that's where we want to end up, that's the destination, and then start to think about what's one little thing that I can do that's in alignment with that destination that I want to end up at. And you'd be surprised at how many, if you show up every single day and work on yourself, just whether that's challenging one negative thought you have or doing one kind thing for yourself to turn that shitty moment that you're experiencing around, or if you do just watch one podcast which is learning about something that's helpful to your personal development, you'll start to see this stark increase in how fast you're getting towards that trajectory. And what you'll probably find is you completely surpass what you thought was possible. That's certainly been my experience. Hi, Scary Leah, Scarfy Leah. God, I'm so bad with these names. I hope you are just laughing at it, not taking it personally. Hi, Scarfy Leah. How are you doing? It's nice to see you back again. Yeah, how is everyone doing? Cons, health, the mind, not so much money, but to be better. Yeah, I think that's been my cons for the things that I'm going through now. So for people who've been coming on my lives regularly, I've starting to tackle some addictions I've still got going on in my life, and health has been the driving factor for vaping, which I'm due to stop because I'm doing an addiction group with people. I thought I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I've been saying that I'm going to get over my vaping, so I'm going to do it with the people I'm doing the addiction group with. So health's a big one, and it was for sugar and food. And yeah, my mind wasn't something that was driving as like I kind of think of it like a hook. It wasn't driving us to stop my addiction, but it was definitely a barrier to stopping my addiction. So I knew I had to start having a better relationship with my mind. But yeah, money's a big one. How many people on here I don't know how many people have had issues with drugs, but if you've had issues with drugs, I didn't used to think twice about spending money on a bag of Coke when I used to do Coke or a hen of Ket. But I would and ah about spending money on clothes and even nice food because all my money was going straight on drugs with no question asked. And honestly, the difference in money that I had after that was quite nice, to be honest with you. Hi, Jason, how are you doing? Mark, hi, how are you? How did you manage to stop it all? Don't want to be rude or anything, but what was your addiction and how did you overcome that? So this light is doing my head and it's like half shining my eyes. I just need to... I'm going to move you there so I'm not looking as far over. Oh, this has been a bit of a sloppy live, guys. I hope you can bear with. So my addiction was ketamine. That was the worst one. I really, really struggled with Ket to the point where, talking about health, my bladder was starting to really get affected. So the thing with ketamine is it actually forms scar tissue on your bladder. And I was getting the first signs of that is you start to struggle. It's almost like having cystitis. You get like water infections. You need to go to the toilet all the time. It's painful when you wee. So it's really not a nice feeling. And the problem is I knew this was happening to my bladder because I knew what happens in the long term. So I actually knew people who had catheters fitted because of Ket. So I started to experience my bladder getting affected and I still couldn't stop. I also managed to stop when I was pregnant and then end up relapsing in my third trimester, which was really awful. I really it was a really scary spot to be in. And then I got sober the night I gave birth. So the day I gave birth, I was under the influence of ketamine, which was possibly one of the most terrifying experiences I had because I was so scared in case they knew. And I'd have my child taken off as also I was going into birth. And then I stopped and became sober when I gave birth, and then I ended up relapsing twice after that. So yeah, Ket was the big one. And then prior to having an addiction to Ket, I was just in and out of anything and everything. So I've said this quite a lot because I get asked quite a lot, but my psychiatrist said I was addicted to mind-altering substances. So just anything for a buzz. Oh, sorry, Elsa. You said I've missed your comment. I'll go back up again. Oh. Oh, thanks for the likes, guys. I quite like it. I've had 18,000 people on this morning. It was quite a lot, but it's quite nice having it just at 16 people. Can have a little more chill chat with you guys and try and get through all your comments as well. So, Elsa, I have child trauma and had brain trauma from a car hitting me. I stopped smoking weed, but drink too much alcohol now, and I don't even like drinking alcohol. Elsa, would you like to be involved in my addiction group? It's free of charge. With alcohol though, so alcohol, it depends on your consumption, but the thing with alcohol is whenever you're going to quit alcohol, you need to be aware of the impact that it can have on your body if you just stop and go cold turkey, because it can be fatal. So it's really important if you're struggling with alcohol that you do with the professional, and that'll looks like reducing down, so doing it in a safe way where you're not just stopping and going cold turkey from alcohol. So that's really important for you to be aware of, which means that even if you don't like it and you're struggling, you can today or tomorrow start to move towards the direction you want by reducing down. But I would definitely suggest, Elsa, that you find some kind of professional to do it with. But yeah, you can absolutely join my addiction group. If anyone's watching and they're in active addiction or they're in early stages of recovery and they're struggling, I'm running a free addiction group that people can join. Just comment on any of my content. Thanks everyone who's liking my live. That's really helpful. And just commenting as well. Right, let's see what other people are saying. Yeah, so, sorry, I'm going to spend a little bit more time on Elsa. So, with the child trauma and the brain trauma, so trauma is a really difficult thing to deal with. There's a really great diary of a CEO that I've just been watching tonight as well, and it's talking about how to deal with trauma, and it's really great. So if you comment on any of my content, like my shorts or lives, I'll get a notification. I'll send you a link for that as well. And I also have a really great trauma therapist who will be happy to work with anyone as well, so I can signpost you to them. But the best thing I'd say is when we're struggling with addiction because of trauma, it's really important that we build our resilience up first or alongside the addiction recovery so that we can face the trauma. And building resilience looks like learning to love yourself, learning how to regulate your nervous system, making sure you've got a good support network around you, letting go of shame. So just going through a process of learning to just accept yourself and accept your flaws and just be compassionate with yourself. And that's skills that you can learn which take a little bit of time. So I would start there. I would find somebody who can help you reduce down safely or detox, depending on what you need. I would work on loving yourself and work on calming your nervous system. I hope that was helpful. And also your habits as well. That's something that, again, with alcohol, you have to be careful with. So just get used to exercise and control, but don't, if you're used to having a drink, say you drink heavily, this is assuming, I don't know the information, but say someone who struggles with alcohol and you're used to drinking heavy, and maybe you have a drink when you first wake up. It's really important that when we're exercising control, we don't go too far away because your body can go into shock. Same with benzocaine. Benzocaine, oh, my brain's going blank. That's not the right word. Maybe it is. I'll go back to that. But it's really important that you exercise control, but you don't leave too much of a gap. So by exercising control, what I mean is, okay, I'm not going to have it now. I'm going to wait 5 or 10 minutes and I'm going to go and do something different. And then I'll allow myself to have a drink. Just so you get used to getting through to the other side of a craving. And you can say to yourself, actually, that's not something that's going to go on forever, because that's how we feel like this craving is just never going to last. So we get used to getting over a craving, but you're not pushing it back so far that you're sending your body into shock. So yeah, like I say, alcohol's something you've got to be really careful with. Scarphilia says, how are you doing? I hope, I've already read that one. I hope everyone's okay. I'm doing good. I'm just a little bit tired, guys. I get a little bit, I'm a bit like a computer. I start like glitching and stuff when I'm tired. Oh, Mark, nice to see you back. Hi, how are you? How did you manage to stop it all? Oh my God, I've literally read this one out, guys. You're going to have to bear with us tonight. Oh yeah, but I didn't answer all of it, so don't want to be rude or anything, but how did I stop it all? So, like I've said tonight, what I did is I learned to love myself. So I did stop my addiction a few times, but I kept relapsing. And I think the problem looking back was I wasn't changing anything other than stopping the addiction. So I was just going cold turkey. Whereas the time when I was successful is I'd been day in, day out working on loving myself. And when you start to love yourself, then you start to get to a point where you think, actually, I don't really enjoy the environment I'm in because it's not reflecting how I feel inside. So an example of that might be, maybe you've got, this is hypothetical, but maybe you've got a group of friends and you start to love yourself and you're pouring into yourself day in, day out, and you start to realise, actually, I'm treating me better than what my friends are treating me. And it starts to shine light on the dynamics of your relationship. So to give you an example of this, when I started doing my counselling training, one of the big things in counselling training is that you need to do what's called personal development, because the idea is that you can't help other people heal their traumas and their mental health if you're struggling with trauma and mental health, poor mental health yourself. So you have to do personal development. So every week you're learning how to have a better relationship with yourself and how to love yourself more and how to have a better relationship with others. And there was a running joke where basically every year the course got called the divorce course, because what would happen is you'd get, say, 30 people coming to do a counselling course, and by the end of the course you'd have quite a large portion of people who were breaking up with their significant others. Because what was happening is, as they were learning to love themselves and learning about boundaries and learning about just how to have a good relationship with themselves, what it highlights is that you don't have other people treating you in a nice way. You've been tolerating people treating you with disrespect because you didn't love yourself enough to say, actually, I don't like that. Or maybe you start to love yourself enough to put in boundaries, and the people in your life preferred the version of you that they could walk all over. So then it starts to cause friction in your relationships. So yeah, it started getting called the divorce course. So that was a very long-winded way of saying what I did to get sober successfully was learn to love myself. And that was just a day in, day out slog of how can I love myself in this moment. Right, Mohammed, you're absolutely right. I didn't think of it this way, as you mentioned, how to reach there from small steps. I always saw the picture as overwhelming. Yeah, if anyone's in addiction, you've probably heard, or maybe even if you're not in addiction, you've probably heard the saying, take sobriety each day as it comes. And that's because thinking about the idea of never taking a drug again, or never gambling again, or never watching porn again just seems horrible. It's so overwhelming. And the reason why is our body's going to fight or flight. So, our brain's starting to see that as a threat. It's a huge, overwhelming threat. And we get flooded with cortisol and adrenaline, and it's just really off-putting. So the best thing we can do is say, okay, that's the goal. Like, let's be realistic about this and do one thing at a time. There's a really good book called Atomic Habits, and it talks about that. And I apply a lot of what Atomic Habits talks about to my addiction recovery program. Right. Loss is spelt with the Latin OS, a word meaning mouth. Okay, the Latin word for health is sanus. This is where the English word sanity comes from. I'm not sure if the word anus is a cognate of sanus or vice versa. My brain's not processing that properly. So, okay, I feel like this is a riddle that me tired brains having to work out. So if we think about mouth, and we're thinking about... Yeah, can you explain this Can you explain this to us? Because I feel like there's some wisdom in what is Jay saying, but I'm not picking up what you're putting down, and I want to. Felix, nice. I don't know what's nice, but I'm glad you're feeling nice. I'm happy to spread the joy. Or perhaps insanity is actually the same as insaneness. Wait, so you've already said what insaneness is, which is health. Yeah, and I think if we think about insanity, see, the thing I was going to say there, insanity is poor mental health, but actually, I think I was just started thinking there about how it's all really subjective as well, because a lot of people, you can say someone's insane, and actually I think they're just on a different wavelength. I think insanity can just be going against the typical norm. But yeah, I'm interested to see what your train of thought is, Jay. Mark, I was drinking and doing cocaine for 10 years, and I've been clean now for 3 months, but I still get the urge to go out and party. But I'm 37 now, got 2 beautiful daughters that I need to live for. I love that. Is that your driving factor then? Because that was for me. I had a son, and I thought I have to get sober for my son. I think that was I always say, don't get sober for somebody else. Don't stop an addiction for someone else. But because, say you're doing it because you're in a relationship and that person's telling you to do it, it can be, if that relationship goes wrong, then you're likely to fall back into addiction. So although it's a good reason to do it, you need some other reasons as well. But I would say, if you have a kid, that is a dependent that never goes away. And for me, although I learned you need to do it for something internally, that was an external driving force that helped me. How are you finding it, Mark, by the way? Because you're in the 3 months, you should be starting to feel like the urges are getting a little bit more manageable, that you should be starting to notice that it's getting a little bit better now, because your brain should start to be rewiring quite rapidly at this point. But yeah, how are you feeling, and what have you replaced your addiction with? Yeah, Mouse has said, nice one, Mark, well done. Absolutely. The thing is as well, 10 years is a decade. Like, that is a long time to be doing cocaine. And I know so many people who haven't been able to stop. I know people in the 50s and 60s who still do cocaine, so that's massive. Hey, Rainan, how you doing? Hi from Newcastle. That is good advice. It could be really hard to be good to yourself. Yeah, Jay, it can be really hard to be good to yourself. And especially if you've spent the majority of your life not being good to yourself. So if we think of it, though, like a behaviour that we've got to learn, we can start to learn to be good to ourselves. And like anything that we start to learn, it feels uncomfortable in the beginning, and it feels alien, and it doesn't feel great, but we can learn to be good to ourselves. And that's why I say just day in, day out, practice that. Like, practice does make perfect. And just think of it like progress. Just constantly go for progress and learning to love yourself. And you're not just doing yourself a service and a favour, you're doing everybody else. Like, if you love yourself, you're going to show up in a much better way for everybody else. So even in the beginning, if you feel like, oh, well, it's not worth learning to love myself, learn to love yourself for others. That's what I'd say to a people pleaser out there. It is, though. It can be really hard. And again, just start small. Hello, I am Ping Pong Long John. It says here, you have not paid your electric bill. Please send us credit card. Thank you. Oh God, I do not have a credit card. Far too impulsive for stuff like that. ADHD and bipolar. Right, 4 to go. Wow, interesting study. Can you please cite me the source? Which study you're talking about, 4 to go? Can't remember which one I've said. Hi, Shark. How you doing? Hi, Columbo. Oh, hi, Ashley and everyone. Hi, Columbo. How you doing? It's not a riddle, simply the origins of the word lost. No, I didn't mean it was a riddle. I meant my brain was turning it into a riddle because it's just struggling with processing life at the moment. I'm a bit tired. I just meant when we're talking about loss, like the origins, like how does it apply? Like how can we use... So for me, when I think about the origins of a word, it helps us to better understand something. So, for instance, like one thing that I've spoke about a lot in here, which I found really helpful, is like the origins of the word sin. It means it's an arrow, like it means to archery term, and it means to miss the mark. So whenever I used to think about sinning, I used to think like, oh, we're doing something bad. But if you can go back to the origin, you can find a slight nuance in the word, which makes it more comfortable, which is like missing the mark, which everybody misses the mark. So yeah, I'm wondering what you meant by that. Maybe I'm just putting too much meaning into what you're saying, though. if that's the case, I'm sorry. Oh, warrior for Jesus. We have to hate our sin. Oh, that's weird. I was just saying about sin. We have to hate our sin and our destructive ways, realise what is good. See, now what I've just said there, warrior, without us even realising that you've made that comment, is I would argue, in relation to what I've just said, if we look at the word sin, if it means just missing the mark, should we really be hating on ourselves for missing the mark, for getting something wrong when we don't have the ability and the skill to hit the mark? So what I would say, going back to that practice, is if we're sinning, aka we're not getting it right, we're being human, we're making mistakes, if we realise that we're making mistakes, then what we can do is start to learn how to hit the mark, how to not make that mistake again. And I think that's, we think about, we rack up a lot of shame in our lives, every person, because every person's missing the mark. Every person makes mistakes in their lives, and we feel guilt and shame around that. And I always think that it's okay to make mistakes if we don't realise we're making the mistake. Once we realise that we're making a mistake, and I'm talking about a mistake where we're hurting somebody, so we get that shame and that guilt. Once we realise that we're doing something that's hurtful and is harming someone else or harming ourselves, then we have a moral responsibility to start learning to do it differently. And then that's where we need to not shame ourselves for the past mistakes. We need to not shame ourselves for the learning process, but we need to aim for the fact that we're doing it differently. So I would say we shouldn't hate our sin. We should forgive our sin, and we should acknowledge, okay, let's not sin again. And let's be realistic about that, because any learned behavior, any mistake that we've made, it's very easy to do it habitually. So I'm going to give you an example of my own. I'm going to think of one though, because I know I've had a lot of toxic behaviors. Okay, so one of the first things I learned when I started analysing myself was that I was quite controlling. So I would, and it was with my partner at the time, so I would tell him to do stuff and he'd have to do it when I said, or I'd start kicking off. So it was really controlling, and it was basically not cool. So it was a sin. It was a behaviour that was missing the mark. But it came from a sense of I learned that, one, you control people. That's what happened to me when I was growing up. My mum was quite like that, because obviously her mum. And I learned that you have to tell people what to do, which is wrong. And then also I like to feel like I was in control, because it made me feel important, and it just wasn't cool. So I realised I was doing this. I realised it's borderline abusive to like, when you're controlling somebody else, it's borderline abusive, let's be real. And then I thought, right, I need to change that. So it's very hard to just stop a behaviour you've done your entire life. So first of all, I had to notice it. Then I had to think about, okay, that wasn't cool. I'm going to try and do it differently next time. And that happened quite a few times before I was able to physically stop myself in the act and do differently the next time. So this can be with anything. Maybe you're somebody who flies off the handle and you get really aggressive. So first of all, you realise that's not okay. Then you start to reflect on it. Then you start to try and do differently. So yeah, I would argue against that. Right, Mark, I had to get sober for myself and my daughters because they need you and I need them. So they were my goal to getting sober, and having them in my thoughts made it easier. I love that. Yeah, that was really similar to my belief. It's that it's I think it's a really, that I feel like I was really blessed for my addiction, that I had that kind of goal, that I had my son, because I was exactly the same as you, whereas like they need me. And actually what I've come to realise, because I stopped when my son was 8 months old, what I've come to realise is exactly what you said, is I actually need him. Beautifully amazing woman, nice eyes, perfect smile, greetings from Poland. Thank you. I've been to Poland before. I stayed in Krakow and then I did a trek. It's beautiful. Poland was lush. Greetings from Newcastle in England. Hi from Spain. Hello, I've lived in Spain. Well, the Balearic Islands. I've been quite a few times. It's lush. Is Jay, how different are men and women psychologically? Your advice is good. It applies differently in males and females. Absolutely. Is Jay, does. Men and women are very different psychologically, and a lot of it's to do with socialization. So men are socialized not to think about their emotions. So the thing with men is, for most men, is not most men, but I want to be careful here. It's quite common for men to struggle with their emotions and struggle to link their emotions with their emotional side of the brain with the rational side of the brain. So the rational side of your brain is responsible for like language and logic. So I was thinking like your left side of your brain, L for logic and language. There's other things in there as well. And your right side of your brain is responsible for right here and right now, so the here and now, and also what's really going on, I like to think of it. So what's really going on in the side is your emotions and your intuition. So with men and women, they're slightly different, because men typically have stronger connections in one side of the brain, whereas women have stronger connections that bridge both the left and right side of the brain. So to put that in simplistic terms, women are able to put language, which is your left, remember language and logic, they're able to apply language and logic to the right side of the brain, which is what's really going on inside, emotions and intuition. So when we look at therapy, it's easier for women to do talking therapies because they already have an ability, mostly, not all women, but a larger proportion of women already have the ability to put language to the feelings. So if you look at a man who's going for talking therapies, typically they would struggle because they don't even know how to put language to the feelings, let alone logic and explain it. So the thing with men, what they tend to struggle with is they haven't got the basics. So I'd say for men, what would be helpful is to start to learn what your feelings are and start to name them. So that might just be as simple as, I feel weird right now, I feel angry, I'm feeling upset, and getting comfortable with where it feels. And then once you've learned what you feel, because it can take a while just to even recognize what you're feeling, I'm feeling jealous or whatever, then start to put the word because after it. So I'm feeling jealous because this happened. And then once you've put the because, so once you've worked out what you're feeling, then you can start to think about it in a different way. So you kind of have a bigger job, I'd say, men. Also, there's a lot of other things with men around testosterone and dopamine and loads of other things which interplay with different addictions. So, yeah. I hope that was helpful. There's so much around men and women which are different, to be honest with you, but I would say that's the barrier that you have to face. Right, Mark. It's getting easier, but I still get them people calling, inviting me out, but they know I don't do that shit no more. So I had to cut all ties. Yeah, I had to do the same, Mark, with a lot of people. It's really shit, isn't it? It's really shit when especially if it's long-term friends as well. I think by the end of my addiction, the friends I had were mainly friendships built on a buzz. But there were some friends that I had to distance myself from, which I just had basically, just got wrecked with. One thing I was able to successfully do with some friends was redefine the friendship. So some friends I was able to say, can we do something different? So we just did something different. And the main thing I did was lean into the friends who I had who didn't get wrecked. I'm guessing though it's slightly different because my addiction was ketamine, and I don't think ketamine is as common as people doing coke and drinking. I think that's the problem. I think it's something that's not spoken about enough, but I do think there is a large portion of people, especially younger people, who go out and get drunk and do coke at a weekend. And I think it's not spoke about enough, but it is very true and it is the reality. So yeah, I do really feel for you, Mark. And I think this is what a lot of people who struggle with alcohol as an addiction have to face, and it's really hard. Warrior for Jesus, love overcomes evil and covers a multitude of sin. Love is always the key. 100% agree with that, Warrior. 100%. Ash here. Hi, Ash. How you doing? From one Ash to another. It's nice to see you again. Is Jay. You were talking about health. I thought it was appropriate to tell people what health is and to allude to what it's not. Don't keep shining. Oh, just don't keep sinning. Yeah, just don't keep sinning. Yeah, when you realise you're sinning, try and do differently. Right, Columbo, I'm an evening beer drinker, changed to the point of intoxication for years. I'm a believer in Christ and want to stop, but 12-step groups, prayer and counselling hasn't seemed to help. Columbo, would you like to join my addiction group? It's for free and it's different to what all the addiction groups do. It's based on my own my own little philosophy on addiction. And you're welcome to join. Anybody who wants to join my addiction groups, they're free of charge. And just comment on any of my content, support group, and I will give you the details. Right, I'm gonna go to the bottom and I'm just gonna try and like dot around with the comments so everyone's getting a chance to get their things answered. Third temple, I'm trying to get off heroin at the moment. If you'd like a one-to-one with heroin, I can give you a phone call and help support you in that. I think with things like heroin, so hard drugs and alcohol, I think it'll be better if I do a one-to-one free of charge again, just comment one-to-one than giving you advice on here. But I will say what I've said throughout this is I would focus on learning to love yourself. The thing with heroin is often it's because we're taking heroin because we're trying to numb some emotional pain. Because if you look at what's really good is to look at what the drug itself does and how that applies to you. So for me, ketamine's a sedative. So why am I trying to sedate myself? Why is that my drug of choice? And there's usually clues in that answer. And with heroin it actually works with your pain receptors in your brain. So usually there's an emotional or physical pain or both that you're trying to combat. Because if we think about addiction as a solution, not the problem, it's a solution to an underlying problem you've got, usually a subconscious problem, and we need to get a better solution. But first we need to work out what is it the solution to, what's the problem, and that's a good starting point. Is Jay, the word feel, I believe to be a cognate of the Latin anatomical structure leafis, which is the diaphragm muscle involved with inhalation to feel. Yeah, I love that because I was talking about it at the beginning. So one of the great things to do when we're coming off addiction or just in general in life is start to get used to being in the present moment and, feeling. If we just start to feel, which is like feel life and just enjoy the feeling of being present. And if we think about inhaling, that's, you think of meditation and mindfulness, and just feeling your breath is so helpful. But I think also when you think about breathing, like inhale, it's just that very specific moment. And if we focus on that specific moment, we can feel. And it's really nice to feel. One of the things I did, which really helped us with my addiction recovery and my mental health in general, is I started getting comfortable with feeling. So I really struggled to feel anything because I would push my feelings down and I would numb them with alcohol and drugs. And I'd done that for the entire adulthood up until late teens, early adulthood till 32. So when I came out of my addiction, I wasn't really used to feeling anything other than anger, which would just explode when I was pushed to the limits. So I had to learn how to feel things. And one of the things that happens when you start to deal with your feelings is it's not just happiness that you start to feel, but it's also sadness, grief, shame, jealousy. So it's joy, all these lovely and bad feelings. And what I started to do was learn to get comfortable in the negative feelings. And the reason why I started to do that was because I've got bipolar and I had no choice but to feel depressed. So I started to lean into that depressed feeling, and I actually started getting really comfortable with it. And when I started to get comfortable with the feeling of pain, I actually quite started to like it, not in a sadistic way, but if I was feeling it in the right environment, like going to the beach. I used to go to the beach and just sit there at night and just feel the sadness in a nice environment. It actually started to feel really solemn, and it was a really nice sort of I don't know, I just made peace with my pain. It's a nice feeling. And then later on, I started to like cry. And then I started to realize the relief in crying. So I started to welcome crying. And yeah, I just started getting comfortable in these emotions. And it's really helped my mental health. Because when you start to be able to feel negative emotions, then you start to make space to be present with positive emotions as well, like awe and joy. Right, I'm going to just scroll about and pick some people. Fuel your mind motivation. I hate being addicted because I have low dopamine right now. Yeah, that's one of the biggest things is what happens with dopamine, what fuel your mind motivation's talking about is when we're addicted to something that makes you produce high dopamine, aka drugs, alcohol, smoking, all these different things, gambling, porn, what happens is we flood our brain with dopamine. And to compensate for this, because our brain and body's always trying to achieve homeostasis, which is balance. So to compensate for that, what it does is it inhibits the amount of dopamine production. So you start to produce less dopamine with whatever it is that you're addicted to, which is why we get a tolerance. So we have to have more to get that same amount of dopamine. And again, the brain tries to achieve homeostasis. So we start to feel less dopamine off the thing we're addicted to. But also because we start to inhibit the dopamine receptors in our brains, the things that we usually get dopamine from, aka connecting with friends and family, enjoying just life things like interactions with people, stroking our pets, going out for nice walks, sunsets, all these different things like your hobbies and interests. We're not producing, we don't produce as much dopamine off these things as we do the addiction. But on top of that, we've also numbed our receptors, we've down-regulated them. So these things that don't produce as much dopamine are pretty much not producing any dopamine anymore. So yeah, to put in a nutshell, being addicted means that you have very low dopamine in everyday life activities, which is really hard because it means the only thing we're enjoying is the addiction. And on top of that, we're not enjoying it as much as we did when we first started. It's really sad. So what we can do if you're addicted and you're wanting to get back and you're not knowing how to stop is just reduce down slowly. So if you think about your brain is down regulating the amount of dopamine, what you can do is you can down regulate the thing that's flooding your brain with dopamine. And that can be a good way to get yourself to sobriety and away from addiction. Right. What was I addicted to? Ketamine was the worst addiction, but just dopamine. I think everyone's addicted to dopamine. We all have our little addictions, but it was alcohol and drugs, and it was any alcohol and drugs I could get my hands on when I was in my 20s, and then ketamine was the one that really got us. I'm just going to scroll around at random. Right, warrior, correct. We have no ability to make it right, but Christ can give us those abilities. So it's not from us, but it's him who gives us grace. Yeah, and I think if you're religious, it can be really comforting or spiritual to know that we are being given grace. I'm spiritual, but if you're not as well, just receiving grace, whether it's from a higher power or even just ourselves, can be so helpful in life. I give myself grace all the time. And in turn, how we treat ourselves, we treat other people. So an example that I always use is I used to have zero boundaries with myself, which meant I had zero boundaries with other people. The more I got boundaried with myself, aka with my addiction and showing up and doing the same practices, the more boundaried I got with other people. So the more grace I started giving myself for my mistakes and, not always getting it right, the more grace I started to give other people. And it meant that I started to see the world in a better way. So I think it's nice, a good starting place if we are spiritual and religious is we've got this higher power giving us grace. But if we're not spiritual and we're not religious, just be that higher power. Give yourself grace, give yourself forgiveness, and I forgive myself and give myself grace on a daily basis, because I am constantly screwing up. I do things like I get emotionally dysregulated, and then my son will ask us something. I'm like, Tommy, will you just stop? And then I'm like, sorry, Mum was just loud there. I didn't mean to react like that. Can you just give us a minute? I'm not enjoying you tapping on us, so I'll give myself grace. Or maybe today I haven't tidied my whole house and it's looking a bit of a mess. I'll give myself grace because I'm human. And every time I just say, like, I'm human, and that is okay. If you're a female and your male partner isn't leading the way, you might feel the need to be controlling. Yes, that is something that I've been really interested in, is Jay. Yeah, I think there's what is Jay's talking about is the psychology of men and women. So naturally, men are supposed to lead, and it's all to do with testosterone. It's like this provider protector mentality, and it's biological. And women are supposed to be more nurturing and receiving. So when you find that women are more controlling, it tends to be that they're more in like masculine energy because they're not felt safe enough to relax. Now, you can look at this from a different frame of reference as well, which is PAC. It's called PAC. It's transactional analysis, and it's a type of therapy, like psychodynamic therapy. And what PAC stands for is parent, adult, child. So it doesn't necessarily mean that my partner was not leading, and that's why I was being controlling. What it could have been was that I was controlling, which would be parent. So I was acting like a parent, which was forcing him into child. So if you have somebody who is overbearing and telling you what to do, that is very much like a parent. So somebody telling you what to do, if you're acting like a parent, is going to automatically make the other person go into child mode, which is either submitting and doing what you're saying or rebelling, and usually it's both. So there's zero respect. And if you're in a relationship where you're parenting your partner, that is not attractive, because parents do not feel attracted to their children. So it's not attractive for either party. For a healthy relationship, what you want is adult. And that's where you're not controlling. You're treating the other person with respect. And generally speaking, a male's going to feel more comfortable leading things, whereas the woman's going to feel more comfortable leading the emotional side of the relationship. And they're going to be more comfortable leading the physical side of the relationship, aka planning dates and stuff like that. And also, it's a lot to do with testosterone and dopamine and all different things. Right. You seem to be a well-balanced person. Well done. Sometimes I am. I have my moments. It's definitely a work in progress. Definitely. I'm well balanced. I am well balanced, but I still get triggered emotionally. And whenever I get triggered, it's usually an opportunity to look at why. But I got triggered the other week. So I'm autistic, and I really don't do well with plan change and time frames. It just stresses us out. And somebody changed the plan and put a time frame on us as well, a time limit on how long we were going to see each other, and it just sent us west, and I just absolutely had a meltdown. I was not emotionally balanced at all. So yeah, I am balanced for the most part, but I'm also human, guys, so I don't want to pretend to be something I'm not. Also, before I need to leave, I would like to thank you for encouraging people and giving your time to do so. Amazing. Thanks, Warrior for Jesus. And thanks for commenting as well, because I know there's a lot of people who are religious who will agree with what you're saying and will like that reminder. I just always try to be careful with people with comments about religion that I'm very spiritual myself, but I don't want people who aren't spiritual religious to feel pressured. But yeah, I know that the right person would have wanted to hear that. Right, let's scroll around and see what people are saying. There's quite a lot of comments. Oh, thanks, Darth, for writing chunky loads, because that's driving us up the algorithm. So yeah, I appreciate when people are commenting no matter what it is, to be honest with you. Right, let's find something that's not in there though. Right, Tom. Oh, nice to see you again, Tom. I recognise your name. So ADHD, CPTSD, and personality disorder / opiate addicted. How does somebody like me get any motivation / dopamine to do the little things that help me going for a walk? So I have CPTSD, PTSD, ADHD, autism and bipolar is my list of things that I've dealt with, and I've managed to do that. Haven't dealt with an opiate addiction, so I'm not going to insult you by saying I know what that is, because I know that is so much harder than the ketamine addiction that I had to deal with. But I would just start little. Jordan Peterson talks about this, and he says, so he talks about the idea of competency builds self-esteem. So if you think about when we're failing, we feel like we're failing. I don't think anybody's ever failing at life, but when we internally feel like we're failing at life, we have quite little low self-esteem. We have little faith in ourselves. We constantly feel like we're failing. So what he said is we need to manufacture little wins in our life on a daily basis, and preferably multiple times a day. So these wins that we manufacture have to be things that we absolutely can achieve, and then we need to praise ourselves for it. So that if a walk feels like something that you can't do, and I've absolutely been there, and I get there when I'm on bipolar episodes or I'm just feeling burnt out, what we do is we start to make the goal as small as we can manage. So that might look like, for me, doing the washing up. That's my first thing that I do. I think if I can just do the washing up there and praise myself for doing it when I'm feeling no energy and feeling like crap about myself, and in a bipolar episode I'm winning, so I do the washing up, and then if I can do a little bit more after that, I praise myself for that. There's a lot of things out there that I've heard about different people saying make your bed in the morning and then praise yourself, and when you get back into the bed, say, I made me bed and that was amazing, so I've done one thing today, because it reminds you to celebrate the win that you did that day. And I know it sounds really rubbish to do something like the washing up and praising yourself, but if you start praising yourself, you get dopamine because you've hit a goal. So if you think dopamine is driving you towards pursuit of goals and pleasure, so if you can hit a goal, you're going to get dopamine. And also, you'll start to do other things because you'll start to enjoy the feeling of the win. So then you start to do other little wins. So it's like, okay, yesterday I did the washing up. Today I'm going to do the washing up. And instead of, I don't know, taking heroin or whatever opiate it is that you take, I'm going to push it back and I'm going to celebrate that win. So I'm not going to do it for half an hour or even 5 minutes. If I had somebody who got off alcohol through just doing the 5 minutes, like they'll just get through this 5 minutes and then celebrating the win of getting through 5 minutes. Right, let's see. I'm just going to go through and pick another comment at random. Oh, this is Prime Rays. I'm a cocaine rat who's got a massive alcohol and fentanyl issue. My family has abandoned me. My life is empty while I'm freaking homeless. That sounds pretty close to rock bottom, I would say. Prime. Do you want a one-to-one chat? It's free of charge. I'm happy to do that with you, and I'm going to be doing a support group. But if you want a one-to-one as well, I don't do one-to-ones with anyone, but I'm happy to do one with you on just some little steps that we can take to get you out of that. Try and get a roadmap out of the dire straits that you feel like you're in. The good thing is when we hit rock bottom, the bounce back is going to feel so much better. So the lower we are in life, the more you're going to appreciate getting back to a place, or even getting to, for the first time, a place of just a place of content. Me and my friend, so my friend is a heroin addict, and she used to do not just heroin, like crack, a lot of different drugs, and me and her always talk about how grateful we are for our lives, and on the surface they look pretty shoddy. You know, I'm a single mom on universal credit who's been told I can't work for a year for my mental health. My life doesn't look that great, but I love it. I am obsessed with my life, and my friends the same, and that's because we've felt pretty low. So when you get to a place of just feeling comfortable in your own body and being able to feel joy without drugs, it's a pretty good place. So Prime, I know you're nowhere near that at the moment, but you absolutely can get there. I'm happy to offer some one-to-one support, but if nothing else, just think about what one little step can I take that's gonna build self-love and that's gonna be a win, and just keep stacking them up. And this is another thing that Jordan Peterson said, is if you start doing these wins, the rate in which it snowballs will be rapid, like huge. And that was absolutely my experience of that. Right, I'm starting to get really tired, guys. I was tired from the outset. I just like to make sure that I'm coming on at the same days and times. So I'm getting tired. I don't have as much energy as usual. So I'm just going to go through and pick another 3 comments. I'm sorry for the people that haven't got to. I'm going to just scroll through and pick them at random. So let's see. Oh, nightmare. Not another ex-junkie talking shit. I think that the ex-junkies are the best people to help current junkies, if we're going to call them junkies. But I've actually, for those who don't know, I've got 2 degrees. One's an FDA in counselling, and one's in counselling and sociology, specialising in addiction. I've also got a master's in addiction, and I was studying my PhD in addiction. So I am just another junkie talking shit, but I've got a lot of qualifications behind the shit that I'm talking about. But incidentally, I do encourage anyone who comes on my lives who's in recovery. If you're a veteran and you've got through the other side, please do help other people who are struggling. Like, share what's working for you, because I studied addiction a stupid amount. And then I developed an addiction whilst training to be an addiction counsellor. And I can tell you now that, you know what helped me learn how to not be a junkie was being a junkie. Because I had to learn firsthand how to get out of it. And actually, a lot of the stuff that I learned wasn't that helpful. I had to learn it in real time. So hence why it's called School of Addiction, because I've been schooled in addiction in every way you possibly can be. Carl, she's way too pretty, must be AI. I don't think AI would have wrinkles and spots, but thank you very much for the compliments. I appreciate it. I'm not putting myself down by the way. I'm just trying to prove that I'm not AI. I'm very much human, like all of us. Nick, damn, this hit close. I went through the same thing. What thing did you go through? starting to get a bit of a second wind. I might be able to stay on a bit longer. I used to go to the beach and smoke crack. It was horrible. Yeah, I can imagine. I've never smoked crack. I've never done hard drugs, which I'm really glad about. One of my best friends really struggled with crack and he's managed to get off it, which is amazing. But it was really, really hard. I think all addiction is hard, but heroin and crack is an extra level. And alcohol, I would say. Is waking up negative a normal thing? It's quite a regular thing, but has always been since I can remember. So it sounds like it's a normal thing for you. And if you think of it, like our brains are very habitual. So if your brain associates waking up with feeling negative, then that is what's going to happen pretty much every day. So although that's far from ideal, and I'm saying that in, very underselling how that must feel for you as somebody who's dealt with depressive episodes. It's far from ideal. What it also means is that we can train ourselves to have a different habit. So if you think of your brain like a field of wheat, like neuroplasticity, and if you're walking through a field of wheat and there's a destination, like a shop that you're trying to get to at the other side of the field of wheat, and every day you walk through this field of wheat, there's going to be a track. Think of it that like a habit in your brain, a neural pathway. And you're just going to naturally walk down that path. So if you are naturally used to waking up every day feeling negative, you are just going to be walking down that path to the shop. Now, what we can do is we can start to say, okay, maybe there's a shortcut or there's a better route to get to the shop. And you can work out what that better route is going to look like and start to tread in a new path in this field of wheat. Now, it's not going to feel easy. It's going to be messy. You're going to have to try and remember the path, which is going to be hard because it's going to be overgrown with wheat. So creating a new neural pathway is difficult, but it's doable. Think of it like if anyone's on here can drive. At first, when you learn to drive, it is so messy. You've got so many different things to think about, and you just think like, I'm never going to be able to do this. But lo and behold, 40 lessons later, the majority of people are driving. It might take you longer lessons, but for most people, 40 lessons you're driving. So that's 40 hours. So just keep practicing. And if you make a point of every time you wake up to say, okay, let's elicit a positive feeling. And we can literally create positive feelings in our brain. And it's a skill that we can practice. So practice feeling positive or practice calming your nervous system so that you can feel positive. So if you wake up tense, relax your jaw, relax your posture, do some breathing to regulate your nervous system, and maybe do something that lights you up. So what I do every morning for me, and this works for me, it might not work for you, is I put on music. So I'll get up, I'll make myself a coffee. I love doing my makeup. It's something I've always loved since I was a kid. I do my makeup and I put on some music, some banging tunes, and it just sets us up in a positive frame of mind for the day. So try and create a positive environment and do positive things and get your body feeling positive, and you'll be able to change that. And remember, it might not happen overnight, but if you can put in 40 hours and learn to drive, you can put in however many hours and learn to do that. Right, let's see what somebody else is saying. Your best is different every day. Inspirational ambivert says 100%. I think of it like a ceiling and a floor. I think sometimes you hit your ceiling, which is forever growing, and sometimes you just stay on the floor. But if you just think, okay, I'm at my floor today, what's the lowest level of best I can achieve, and just praise myself. I think it's so important that we just praise ourselves. So I've really learned the art of that in me bipolar, and it's actually helped us maintain bipolar episodes without them getting too low. So like with bipolar, what used to happen is I would get depressed and it would just keep going further and further down. And I think that's what depression feels like for the most people. I think just with bipolar, it's very rapid and it can go very low. But with depression, it just feels like it's getting worse and worse. And one thing I've learned to do is just accept my limitations and praise myself. And what I've found is it doesn't keep spiraling. I tend to just stay stagnant, and then eventually it comes up. So one of the things that I'll praise myself when we're saying like the best is different every day, if I'm at my worst, I'll praise myself for the fact that I've got 3 dependents, which is my 2 dogs and my son. And I'll praise myself that I've got them in a house which is got shelter. They're all loved. They're all fed. They're all clean. And that is the best that I can achieve that day. I might not be, playing loads of fun and games. I might be sitting there with my son on his iPad and me sat next to him just like waiting for the day to be over. But he's loved. He's got food. He's got shelter. And I'll try my best to do like 5-minute interactions where we'll do something low key or watch a film together or something. And I just praise myself for that because I think there's a lot of people who aren't able to provide that for the kids. So yeah, I just praise myself for whatever your best is that you're doing every day. And ultimately, we're all just doing our best. So we all deserve praise. Let's see what other people are saying. Have you ever heard of the Wim Hof method? I highly recommend it. I have heard of it. Andrew Huberman talks about it all the time. I've never done it. I need to. And would you say that, Snake, that was good for addiction recovery, or do you use it for mental health? Can you explain it in a nutshell for people who don't know what it is? Because I don't fully know it myself. I know it's to do with breathing, though. Og Dog has said, what was addicted to? Ketamine was my worst one. Also addicted to vaping. I still struggle with nicotine. I've smoked since I was 12. I'm running in a free addiction group and it's due to start. And I was going to wait until February to stop because I decide each year I do a bit like a New Year's resolution, but for my birthday, and set 2 goals for the year ahead of us. So the age of 36 was to start martial arts and to stop smoking. So I was going to do it in February, but I'm actually going to do it with this addiction group that I'm starting in 2 weeks. Right, out of the trenches. Are you the same person who said? Also, out of the trenches is explaining it. It's breathing and cold therapy. The Wim Hof is... or in a cliffhanger, or is the Wim Hof breathing and cold therapy together? So I'm addicted to Thai massages. Would the addiction group cater to other addictions than drugs? All addictions. It's to work with all addictions. So sex addiction is one of the, I assume you're talking about that kind of Thai massage. Sex addiction is really common, and unfortunately there's not enough support out there for it. There's a lot of addiction services for alcohol and drugs. I don't know how many services there is for gambling, but I know that there's, I assume there is services because I know you've got GA and SA, which SA I think is the one for sex addiction, which covers porn, Thai massages, basically sex workers and all different things like that. But yeah, it's a shame because there's not enough services, and I think it's fully relying on AA groups, well, SA and GA groups. But yeah, basically, oh God, I'm getting tired, guys. Basically, all addiction is pretty much fundamentally the same. So I'll be working with all addiction. So if you'd like to be involved in the group, you absolutely can. Out of the trenches, 2 years clean, meth, fentanyl, porn, gambling with my DOC, and almost always together, was known as cross addiction. That is unbelievable that you've got off meth, fentanyl, and porn and gambling. That is next level. What would you say is the best advice that you could give to people out of the trenches? What got you out of the trenches? The thing is as well, you often do find that you have cross addiction, especially with alcohol. So if people are, what you'll find often is that people have alcohol and cocaine again. Not so you have a lot of people with alcohol addiction, but if you have cocaine, what you'll find is a lot of people who struggle with cocaine and alcohol because it forms a compound called cocoethanol. So while cocaine isn't chemically addictive, cocoethanol is. So you find that when this used to happen to me is as soon I could, cocaine wasn't on my mind, but as soon as I had a drink, the first thing I wanted when I had a drink was a line. And it was just really hard to get away from. And I actually ended up replacing that because I always say Ket was my addiction, but I was quite bad with coke, but it was cocoethanol. So it wasn't every day, but it was a good 3 or 4 times a week that I was having coke and alcohol. And I ended up replacing that with ketamine. It was like a kind of a weird thing that happened. But yeah, it is quite normal. I didn't used to do porn though at the same time, or gambling. Right, let's see what else people are saying. Duncan, the English gent, I have tried self-programming. Every time something goes right, I clap my hands. Then when I need a boost, I clap my hand in order to rally through. That's anchoring. That's a NLP technique, Duncan. I don't know if you know that or not. Is that what you were trying to do? But yeah, that's such a brilliant thing. So what Duncan's talking about is associating something with a feeling. So the feeling of feeling good is attached, is the association of clapping. And then when he's feeling low, he does a clap and he'll instantly feel that. So this naturally happens. So, when we listen to a song and it reminds, like a holiday song, and it reminds us of a certain time, we instantly feel great. That's what they call anchoring, or what Duncan's called self-programming. And you can actually create that by doing what he's done, which is clapping when he's already feeling a good emotion. Or like I said earlier on, we can actually create emotions in ourselves anyway. So you can just sit there, try and think of something that makes you feel joy, feel the emotion, and then what you do is you dial up the emotion. So if we do it now, if anyone wants to, you can. But imagine you're thinking of a happy time, and you visualize it in your brain, and then you feel that, and you imagine you've got a dial and you're turning up that emotion of joy. So you're amplifying it, and you amplify that feeling until it gets to max capacity. And then when you're feeling it at the most you can feel that joy, you add an anger. So that can be clapping like Duncan did. You can put your finger, that's a common one, like finger and thumb together, because you can do that without people seeing. Me and my son do it with a tap, so we hit the reset button. So that's good for kids, so you can just tap. So yeah, and the more times you do it, the stronger the anger becomes. So as Duncan said, every time something went right, he clapped his hands. So he's really drilling that anger in. So the person who said earlier on, and for anybody else who wants to try it, you can do a 21-day challenge with this. But the person who's saying they wake up negative, a good thing you could do is an angering session where you think of something positive, amplify the feeling, attach the anger. And yeah, anybody who wants to do it, I'm going to do it actually with yous. We'll do a 21-day anchor challenge. So every morning, wake up and create a positive feeling and do some self-programming. Let us know how it goes. I heard about it in a book, like a sportsman kissing their badge when they score a goal. I love that, Duncan. Yeah, this is the thing we can attach. You can do it with things as well. So my friend when she was struggling with a heroin addiction, she would get positive things out, and she had associated positive memories for, and that helped. So you could attach the anger to something. Like if you've got a necklace or something, so you've always got it there that you touch the necklace, and you can use it with your addiction recovery. Mr. Blue Sky, my ELO is my anchor song, makes my heart smile every time I listen to it. Yeah, you can do it with a song. You can do it with loads of different things. Smells, if you smell, like anybody smell, I don't know what people's smells are, but there's certain things that you'll have, like aftershaves, remind you of that old boyfriend, and all of a sudden you're thinking about that. But you might have something that smells nostalgic. A weird one for me that smells nostalgic is weed. I love the smell of weed. It makes us feel really calm and relaxed. So whenever I'm walking around the streets and I can smell weed, which, let's be real, is quite often, it makes us feel really calm and relaxed. I'm not really talking about my anger. Oh no, I was saying anchor. Not anger, like an anchor. Like if you think of it, it's called anchoring in NLP. It's my accent. So if you think about an anchor in a boat where it anchors to the floor, and that's the idea, you've anchored clapping to the feeling of, let's go back, I can't remember what feeling you anchored it to. Was it being proud? Is that right? Yeah, so it's exactly, I guess you've learned it from a book, and it just linked in with a type of therapy called NLP. So I was just, you can do it in different ways. But yeah, I think that's a really great thing, Duncan, that you've done. And I hope there's somebody out there who it works for as well. Hi, Joel, how are you doing? Tom, it's the accent, just saying anger, yeah. Language barrier. Oh God, you've got to laugh. I can't imagine what I was just saying would have sounded like if you guys were thinking anger. I think you must have just been thinking, like, what the hell is she on about? Like, you want to replace a good feeling with anger. Like, get real, Ashley. What was the book, Duncan, by the way? Tom, get on Telegram, not here. Look, I barely know about YouTube, let alone Telegram. Right, that's who else. How long have I been clean, Dixie? I've been clean. It will be 4 years on February the 3rd. I got sober. I'm trying to think. Well, I got sober for 6 months when I got pregnant, but then I relapsed 3 times, so I counted from the time after my relapse. So yeah, nearly 4 years. Nice to find you here out of the trenches. I subbed. I'll be back later. Best of luck, everyone. Thanks for subscribing. Anybody who's watching, if you could subscribe, that would be so helpful for us. Third temple, having a child completely alters your aspect to life in a positive way. Yeah, absolutely. I think the only thing is I very selfishly and naively thought that getting pregnant would help us get out of my addiction. And like I say, I relapsed 3 times, once during pregnancy. So it did alter my life, but also I was humbled in the sense that I learned why there's so many parents who still struggle with addiction. Bearing in mind, I was already a trained counsellor and actively working with people as well, probably unethically. Not probably. Well, I was very functioning. I had a lot of compassion for people. But yeah, I was a counsellor, so I knew a lot of skills. I'd already studied my masters in addiction and I'd done loads of courses on addiction. And I still struggled as a parent to quit addiction. So I've got so much empathy for for parents, because you've got so much shame in it as well. But you're right, it does completely alter your life. And I don't think I would be sober without my child, because it was a huge driving motivation, but I realise it can't be the only motivation. Use Canva. Oh, it's inspirational. Use Canva for your thumbnails. It's amazing. You already have 800 subscribers after 1 month, which is really good, by the way. Thank you, inspirational ambivert. I don't know how, I'm so crap with technology. I need to try and get good at it, but I'll take that on board. Do you do a different thumbnail though for each? I probably should. I'm gonna try and I'm gonna follow you because you sound like you know what you're doing. I might just it's probably glitched there because I've just screenshotted your name, see what your thumbnails look like. Because to be honest with you, I don't fully know what you're talking about. If you ask us about rats on drugs, studies about rats on drugs, I can tell you, but thumbnails on Canva, YouTube, not so much. Right, let's see what's I've just seen that Daniel has said, Scarfia, fair play, I'm off the white 3 weeks tomorrow. That's unreal. How are you finding it, Daniel? 3 weeks you're starting to get to the point now. I don't know if this is something you've experienced, but so the first 3 weeks you struggle with, you just don't produce any dopamine. And like, it just feels like you're walking around with the biggest, horriblest grey cloud over you. You feel, you might feel like a sense of win and pride if you're lucky, but it's really hard. But you get to that 3 week mark, and what starts to happen is your dopamine receptors start to recalibrate. So you should, for me, my experience was I started getting like pill-like rushes, like if anyone's ever taken ecstasy, which I'm not advocating for, but I'm just trying to explain, is you get this like tingly feeling. And I started getting that for like sunsets and just like really nice moments with my friends and family and stuff. It was so bizarre. Yeah, do you know actually how I'd explain it if you haven't done ecstasy, because that's probably not a very kosher example. If anyone's ever listened to a song and when you get goosebumps when someone's really good at singing, it was like that kind of feeling I was getting. Right. Chris Wall. Oh, I want to say, Chris Wall, what was your first thing? Because I think I've just seen your comment, but it sounds like you had another. Have you wrote the book Infinite Jest? No, I haven't. Would you recommend it? Let's see what it's about, because I'm sure you spoke about it. It's a huge book and the story is nuts, but the scenes in the halfway house about addiction and at NA and AA meetings are phenomenal. Sounds really good. Anyone, if you want a good read, I forgot what it was called. I need to try and find it. Chris Wall is suggesting Infinite Jest. Right, I want to see what Scarefia said, because you've I like that people are replying to each other. That's great. Like I say, anyone who I know that person was taking the mix saying that, so if you weren't here before, somebody comments saying another junkie helping junkies. Like, I do genuinely think if anyone's in the group who's overcame addiction, please do help other people who are in the trenches at the moment, because like, you are the best person. I actually think that a lot of people in addiction, if they had the choice, I know this was certainly my view, if I had the choice of somebody who came out of addiction to help us with my addiction recovery, or somebody who was a trained counsellor and never experienced it, I definitely would want the person who's overcome addiction. Right. Right, I am actually really tired, so I'm going to just do 3 more comments. I did say that a while back, but I got an extra wind, but that wind is out of my sails now. So Scarphelia says, 1 month clean of cocaine. I feel proud. 15 I started. I was introduced and given it. I never had 2 weeks off, only when I went abroad and couldn't get it. well-travelled, very rarely couldn't. That's unbelievable. Unbelievable, Scarphilia. And also, I've seen you come on here quite a few times. I think that's really great. Not that you're coming on my live, but the fact that you're just showing up for your recovery in any way you can. And 1 month of not doing cocaine every day is like absolutely insanely amazing. And yeah, I'm buzzing for you. I'm over the moon. And the fact that you've been doing it since you were 15, that means you're in pretty much you're in lit. See, this is the problem. You were taking cocaine right the way through your brain developing. So the fact that you've been able to stop is unbelievable. How are you finding it, Scarphilia? I was going to go, but I kind of want to see if you're on here, how you're finding it. Like, fuck with joy. I'm a crazy bastard, but a good crazy. You'll get there. I'm quite successful. It means nothing. Knocked work and business on the head. Life's great. Yeah, I'm a crazy bastard. I'm proud. I'm definitely the good type. Yeah, I think, I don't know about you, but when you start to when you're in recovery, I think getting out of addiction, your priorities change. For me, it's just enjoying life. I don't know if that's the same for you. Daniel has said, I've been diagnosed with ADHD since 13. I was on Ritalin for about 6 months, but never went near it again. Since snuff speed a few times, not my thing. Yeah, I've been diagnosed with ADHD, but I got diagnosed when I was 32, not 13. It presents differently in girls and boys, doesn't it, though? Or tends to. But yeah, Ritalin wasn't for me. I'm off the... Oh, sniffed speed a few times, not your thing. Yeah. It's so weird because I took speed and it really wasn't my thing. And then I got prescribed speed for me ADHD because I was on Elvance adult and then I tried Ritalin for a bit. Daniel, I'm 31 now. And you got diagnosed when you're 13. So how do you deal with your ADHD now, Daniel? Other good books, Chris will... Yeah, anyone got any good books to help people? Or good resources, like any good podcasts or anything that'll help people in recovery? Other good books about addiction and running. There is No Wall by Ali Bailey, also about running, and The Outrun by Amy Liptrot, also a film with Samurais Rowan. By the way, I'm so sorry, I'm dyslexic and I really struggle to read these comments. Right. Brilliant channel, like and subscribe. Thanks, Duncan. Yeah, please, anybody like and subscribe. That would be so helpful. I decided to quit 20 minutes ago. That's amazing. Do you want to join the addiction group, the Louise J? I've got a free addiction group and I do free one-to-ones for certain people who I feel like could benefit from them. And if you want that, just comment on any of my shorts or lives, like any of my content, and I'll arrange that. Scarphilia, I took non-stimulating medication, still bad side effects. Yeah, same. But the antamoxetine was amazing, but I was banging coke and MDMA occasionally, working my business, couldn't sleep, the pain from blood pressure. Yeah, I'm totally, I'm medication free now. Give yourself a pat on the back, love. You're a great woman. Thanks, guys. Anyways, I'm going to go. I'm really tired, but thanks everyone who joined. Go live every Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 10 a.m. and 9 p.m. GMT time. So come along anytime, guys. If you could like and subscribe, that would be really helpful. And it's just a super free thing you can do to help us out. Pressure, it won't let me write. Great pressure. I don't know what you're saying pressure for. Well done, Nos de Carried, Welsh. Right. Scarphilia, I struggle to read English. You cannot be writing Welsh for us to read. Night one, and remember your number one self-love. Yes, 100%. I'm going to end it on that. Everyone, love yourselves. And if you don't know how to, learn how to, day in, day out. That's what I did. I found some addicts the most genuine people I've ever met. Not all, of course, same as non-addicts. 100% agree with that. And do you know what it is? I'm going to end it on this because I said I was going to end it on self-love. There's nothing more humbling than addiction. And I think anyone who's been in the trenches of addiction can agree. It is a horrible place to be, and it just makes you have mad empathy for people. Like you say, there are some people who aren't great in addiction. But yeah. Yeah, Dixie's saying most people with heroin addiction are sound. Well, if you look at heroin addiction, there's, I said this on a different live, so sorry if you've already seen this, but the largest addiction study was done on 20,000 participants, and it was with heroin users. And what it found is 2/3 of them had experienced sexual abuse, and 90% of them, so nearly all of them, had experienced some form of childhood abuse. And the thing is with heroin is it binds to your opiate receptors, which are for pain. So it's like pain relief. So if you think about what kind of pain we're having to deal with when we're altering our brain, is usually some psychological wounding, like aka trauma. So yeah, anybody who's been through trauma, again, probably has mass empathy for other people. So yeah, I fully agree. Yes, and I fully agree with, I feel the opposite for smack dealers. Yeah. Yeah, it depends which ones. Like, I do think, is it a progression where people are supporting the habits and they've ended up going down a path? Because I kind of have some empathy for that. I don't think that many people, I think there's only a small minority of people who start out as children inherently bad-natured, like evil. And I think there's usually a string of events, well, experiences and events which make us in the way that we are. But yeah, I don't think that dealers have much empathy, because how can you have empathy for people if you're just choosing to ignore the harm you're causing? But like I say, I think, I don't know. I've never been in the mind of a heroin dealer, so I'm a little bit on the fence of that. And I'm quite glad that I've never been in the mind of a heroin dealer. I'm quite glad that wasn't my path in life. Anyways, I'm going to go, and it was lush speaking to you all. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for everyone who's subscribed and liked. And if you're available and want to join, I'll see you on Wednesday. Are we only on Monday? No. Are we? Oh my God. This week has been so long. Yeah. Anyways, I'll see you on Wednesday. Bye.